Emily Brown stood nervously at the airport terminal, her heart racing with anticipation. The early morning light cast long shadows across the polished floor, reflecting her determination. At 35, she was a rising marketing executive who had worked tirelessly to reach this moment in her career. Her navy blue suit was pressed perfectly, a testament to her meticulous preparation. A simple gold necklace, a gift from her mother, hung delicately around her neck, a reminder of the sacrifices her family had made for her success. The leather briefcase by her side contained not just documents, but years of hard work and dreams. As she boarded the first-class section of the flight to London, Emily noticed the curious glances. She was used to people looking at her, a young black professional in a space traditionally dominated by older white executives. But today felt different. Something in the air suggested a challenge was coming. The flight attendant approached her seat with a look that made Emily's stomach tighten. She recognized that expression, a mixture of judgment and barely concealed discomfort. The woman, probably in her late 50s, wore a crisp airline uniform that seemed to emphasize her authority. "May I see your ticket?" the attendant asked, her voice sharp and cold. Emily handed over her boarding pass smoothly, her fingers steady despite the nervous energy building inside her. She knew the routine of proving herself all too well. Growing up in a small town, she had learned early that she would always need to work twice as hard to be considered half as good. The attendant examined the ticket, then looked up with a practiced look of skepticism. "I'm afraid there's been a mistake with your seat assignment," she said, her tone suggesting anything but a simple error. "You'll need to move to economy class." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Emily felt the eyes of other passengers watching. Some looked uncomfortable, others seemed to wait for her response. She understood exactly what was happening, another attempt to push her out of a space where she clearly belonged. Emily's mind raced back to her mother's words, "Hold your head high, no matter what happens." Those words had been her shield through countless moments of discrimination, her armor against those who would try to diminish her worth. "I'm certain my ticket is correct," she replied calmly, her voice steady and professional. She knew the power of remaining composed, of not giving anyone the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. The cabin grew tense. An older gentleman in a business suit glanced her way, his expression unreadable. A young woman nearby seemed to be holding her breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Emily's professional training kicked in. She had navigated more challenging situations than this. Years of corporate meetings, of being the only black woman in leadership rooms, had prepared her for moments that tested her dignity. The flight attendant's hand gripped the boarding pass tightly, her knuckles turning slightly white. It was clear this was more than a simple seating mix-up. It was a deliberate attempt to challenge Emily's presence in this space. Around her, the first-class cabin seemed to hold its collective breath. The soft hum of the airplane's engines provided a backdrop to this unfolding drama. Emily knew that her next move would define the entire encounter. She thought about her journey, the scholarship she had fought for, the late nights studying, the internships that seemed impossible to get. Each challenge had been a stepping stone, each obstacle an opportunity to prove her worth. The flight attendant was waiting for a response, her eyes challenging, her posture suggesting she expected Emily to back down. But Emily Brown was not someone who backed down easily. Her fingers touched the gold necklace, a silent connection to her mother's strength, to generations of women who had fought impossible battles with grace and dignity. This was more than just a fight about a seat. This was about respect. This was about belonging. And Emily was ready if the confrontation lingered in the air like a heavy mist. Emily's mind drifted to memories of her childhood, to moments when she first understood what it meant to be different. Growing up in a small town, she had learned early that the world wasn't always fair. Her mother, Margaret Brown, had been her first and most powerful teacher. A school librarian who worked multiple jobs to support her daughter's education, Margaret had instilled in Emily a sense of quiet strength. "Education is your passport," she would say, her warm hands smoothing Emily's hair. "No one can take that away from you." Inside the airplane, the other passengers began to whisper. Some glanced sympathetically in her direction, while others looked away, uncomfortable with the unfolding tension. Emily could feel their eyes, each gaze a weight she had carried her entire life. She remembered her first corporate job, how she had to work twice as hard to prove herself. The subtle comments, the overlooked promotions, the meetings where her ideas were repeated by white colleagues and suddenly deemed brilliant. Each experience had built a resilience within her, a determination that burned quietly but intensely. The flight attendant's words echoed in her mind. "You'll need to move to economy class." Such a simple sentence, yet loaded with so much history. Emily knew this wasn't just about a seat. It was about belonging, about being seen as equal. Her hands, which had been rock-steady moments ago, now trembled slightly. She tried to steady her breathing, remembering the meditation techniques her therapist had taught her. Deep breath in, slow breath out. Each breath was a small act of defiance. Around her, the first-class cabin felt like a pressurized environment of judgment and tension. The soft hum of the airplane's engines seemed to pulse with an almost rhythmic uncertainty. Emily realized that this moment was more than just a personal challenge, it was a representation of countless similar experiences faced by people of color. She thought about her recent promotion to senior marketing executive. It had been a hard-fought battle, involving late nights, exceptional performance, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. And now, here she was, being asked to prove her right to be in this space once again. The older businessman who had been watching earlier shifted in his seat. Emily caught his eye momentarily. Was that sympathy? Understanding? Or just passive observation? The complexity of human interactions always fascinated her. Her mind wandered to her upcoming presentation in London. Months of preparation, detailed market research, innovative strategies, all of that could be overshadowed by this single moment of potential humiliation. She couldn't let that happen. Margaret's words came back to her, "Your dignity is not determined by their perception, but by your response." Emily took another deep breath. She was more than this moment. She was her dreams, her hard work, her potential. The flight attendant seemed to be consulting with another staff member, casting occasional glances in Emily's direction. The power dynamics were clear, they believed they could determine her worth, her space, her belonging. But Emily knew better. She had fought too hard, come too far to be reduced to a simple seat reassignment. Her education, her achievements, her professional excellence, these were her true tickets. As the airplane continued its journey, cutting through clouds and miles, Emily felt a strange calm descending. This was not just her battle. This was a moment that represented countless untold stories of resilience, of quiet strength, of dignified resistance. She remembered the words of her favorite author, a quote she kept on her desk, "Your silence will not protect you." Today, she would not be silent. Today, she would speak her truth. The airplane continued its steady path, unaware of the personal revolution brewing in seat 4A. Emily Brown, marketing executive, daughter, dreamer, was about to make her stand. And she was ready. The cabin grew thick with tension, a silent electricity crackling between Emily and the flight attendant. Just as the moment seemed ready to explode, a gentle but firm voice broke through the silence. Richard Thompson, a distinguished gentleman in his early 60s, leaned forward from his seat 2 rows behind Emily. His crisp gray suit and polished appearance spoke of years of corporate leadership. When he cleared his throat, even the flight attendant paused. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable authority that made everyone listen. Emily noticed his hands. Weathered but strong, adorned with a simple gold wedding ring and a discreet corporate watch that suggested years of professional experience. Something in his demeanor suggested he was more than just another passenger. The flight attendant suddenly looked uncertain. Her confident stance from moments ago began to crumble under Richard's steady gaze. She shuffled the boarding passes, her fingers suddenly clumsy and hesitant. "Sir, we're just sorting out a small seating issue," she stammered, her previous confidence evaporating. Richard's eyebrow raised slightly, a gesture that seemed to communicate volumes without a single word. He was the kind of executive who could silence a room with just a look. Emily watched, her heart racing. She recognized this moment when someone with institutional power chose to speak up. It was different from sympathy. This was active intervention. Richard slowly stood, his movements deliberate and measured. He wasn't tall, but he carried a presence that demanded attention. Walking towards the flight attendant, he quietly requested to see the documents. The other passengers watched in complete silence. Some businessmen exchanged knowing glances. A few passengers discreetly pulled out their phones, sensing something significant was happening. "These documents seem perfectly in order," Richard said after a careful examination, his voice carrying through the cabin. "I'm not sure I understand the problem." The flight attendant's face turned several shades paler. Her professional mask had completely fallen, revealing a mix of embarrassment and uncertainty. Emily realized this was more than just a random intervention. Richard's approach was strategic, calm, and designed to expose the underlying issue without creating a dramatic scene. "Perhaps we could discuss this more privately," Richard suggested to the flight attendant, his tone suggesting it wasn't really a suggestion but a directive. As they moved towards the galley, Emily caught snippets of a conversation about company policies, professional conduct, and respect. The words drifted like puzzle pieces, hinting at a larger picture of accountability. Her mind raced. Who was this man? Why was he intervening? The corporate world often worked in mysterious ways, with connections and conversations happening beneath the surface. The other passengers began to whisper. Some looked supportive, others confused. A young woman near Emily gave her a subtle nod of encouragement. Richard returned a few minutes later, offering Emily a brief, understanding smile. No words were exchanged, but the message was clear: something had shifted. The flight attendant who had challenged Emily now seemed subdued, her previous confidence completely deflated. She avoided direct eye contact, moving mechanically through her duties. Emily felt a complex mix of emotions: relief, vindication, but also a deep, weary understanding that such moments were never truly simple. Each victory came with its own set of emotional complexities. As the airplane continued its journey, cutting through clouds and miles, Emily realized this was more than just a personal moment. It was a small but significant representation of change, of what happens when someone chooses to stand up and speak out. The London skyline began to appear in the distance, a promise of new horizons and continued possibilities. The airplane's wheels touched down at Heathrow Airport with a gentle bump, marking the end of an extraordinary journey. Emily Brown gathered her belongings, her mind still processing the earlier confrontation. Richard Thompson had disappeared into the crowd of business travelers, leaving behind only a moment of unexpected support. As passengers began to disembark, a tall man in a corporate suit approached Emily. He introduced himself as James Miller, the regional operations manager for the airline. His professional demeanor suggested this was more than a casual encounter. "Ms. Brown," he said quietly, "we need to discuss what happened on the flight." The airport terminal buzzed with early morning activity, businesspeople rushing, travelers pulling luggage, coffee shops humming with conversation. But for Emily, everything seemed to slow down. James led her to a quiet corner near the airport's executive lounge. His movements were deliberate, professional. Emily noticed how different this interaction felt from the earlier confrontation: respectful, measured, intentional. "We take incidents like today very seriously," James explained, pulling out a folder. "Richard Thompson is one of our board members, and he's filed a detailed report about the flight attendant's behavior." Emily listened, her professional training helping her remain calm. She understood that corporate conversations like these were delicate, requiring precision and emotional control. The report, as James explained, documented everything. The flight attendant's inappropriate behavior, the attempt to relocate Emily, the clear signs of potential discriminatory treatment. Each word felt like a small victory. "Our company has zero tolerance for such behavior," James continued. "We're implementing a comprehensive review of our staff training programs." Emily thought about her mother's advice: change happens not through anger, but through persistent, dignified action. This moment felt like a living example of those words. Other airport staff moved around them, creating a background of professional energy. Occasional announcements echoed through the terminal, a rhythmic reminder of the world continuing its constant motion. James explained that the flight attendant would be placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation. Corporate accountability, he emphasized, was not just a policy but a commitment to creating an inclusive workplace. "We want to offer you a formal apology," James said, sliding an official document across the table. "And we'd like to discuss how we can make this right." Emily understood the complexity of such moments. This wasn't just about her individual experience, but about creating systemic change. Each conversation, each intervention was a step towards broader understanding. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mother. "I'm proud of you," it read simply. Those 5 words carry generations of struggle, hope, and resilience. The airport continued its constant dance of arrivals and departures. Planes took off and landed, people moved with purpose, life continued its relentless forward motion. James provided Emily with contact information for the company's diversity and inclusion team. "We want to learn from this," he emphasized. "Your experience helps us improve." As they concluded their conversation, Emily felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication. Tiredness. Hope. Each feeling was valid, each emotion a testament to her journey. The corporate world was changing, slowly but surely. And moments like these, uncomfortable, challenging, but ultimately transformative, were how real progress happened. Emily looked out over the bustling airport, her reflection overlaying the busy scene. She saw not just herself, but every person who had ever felt marginalized, overlooked, pushed aside. This was more than a personal victory. This was a moment of collective possibility. As she walked towards the airport exit, her steps were steady, her head held high. The day was just beginning, and with it, new opportunities for understanding, respect, and genuine connection. 2 weeks after the incident, Emily Brown sat in her London office, surrounded by marketing reports and city skyline views. The morning sunlight streamed through large windows, casting a warm glow on her desk. An official letter from the airline's CEO arrived that morning. Its contents were more than just an apology, it was a commitment to change. The company would implement comprehensive diversity training for all staff, with Emily invited to be a consultant in developing these programs. Her phone buzzed. It was her mother, Margaret, calling from their small hometown. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice filled with maternal concern. "I'm more than okay, Mom," Emily responded. "I'm making a difference." The airline had not just apologized. They had taken concrete steps. The flight attendant responsible for the initial confrontation was no longer with the company. More importantly, the incident had sparked a broader conversation about workplace discrimination. News of Emily's experience spread quickly. Professional networks, diversity forums, and social media platforms discussed the incident. What could have been a moment of personal humiliation had become a catalyst for meaningful dialogue. Richard Thompson, the board member who had intervened on the flight, became an unexpected ally. He reached out personally, offering support and mentorship. His intervention demonstrated that change could come from unexpected places. Emily remembered her early career struggles, the job interviews where she felt invisible, the meetings where her ideas were overlooked. Each challenge had built her resilience, preparing her for moments like these. The marketing presentation she had traveled to London to deliver was a massive success. Her team's strategies impressed senior executives, proving that her professional capabilities far exceeded any attempts to marginalize her. Journalists began reaching out, wanting to understand her story. Emily was careful in her responses, focusing not on personal drama but on systemic change. She understood the power of narrative. Her colleagues at the marketing firm rallied around her. They saw her not as a victim, but as a leader who had transformed a potentially destructive moment into an opportunity for growth and understanding. The airline's public response was comprehensive. They announced new policies, committed to increasing diversity in leadership positions, and invited external audits of their workplace practices. Emily thought about her journey. From a small-town girl with big dreams to a marketing executive challenging corporate narratives. Each step had been deliberate, each challenge a learning opportunity. Her mother's lessons echoed in her mind: your dignity is your most powerful weapon. Never let anyone make you feel small. As the day progressed, Emily received messages of support from professional networks, former classmates, and even strangers who had heard her story. Each message was a reminder that individual actions could create collective impact. The London office buzzed with energy. Her team worked on innovative marketing campaigns, their creativity reflecting the diversity of their experiences. Emily had always believed that true innovation came from embracing different perspectives. By afternoon, the airline's CEO personally called Emily. They discussed potential speaking engagements, opportunities to share her experience at corporate diversity conferences. "Your courage has started an important conversation," he told her. "We're committed to real, meaningful change." Emily looked out over the London skyline. The city, with its complex history of diversity and transformation, seemed to mirror her own journey. Change was possible. Progress was constant. As sunset approached, painting the sky in warm oranges and pinks, Emily reflected on the past weeks. What could have been a moment of defeat had become a triumph of dignity. Her phone buzzed again, another message of support. Another opportunity to create change. She smiled, understanding that her story was far from over. It was just beginning. The triumph of dignity was not about winning against others, but about lifting everyone up. And in that moment, Emily knew she was doing exactly that.